Thank you for being so patient with us this evening. We had a little bit of technical issues, and now I think we've got everybody online that needs to be. So I'd like to welcome you all. It is today is November 20th, and Wednesday, November 20th, and I would like to welcome you all to this meeting of the Bismarck Planning and Zoning Commission. And with that, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Ben, would you please call roll?
Yes, Chair. Commissioner Bittner?
Here.
Field? Johnson?
Here.
Larson?
Here.
Lukens?
Here.
Shell?
Here.
Schmitz?
Here.
Sivak? Wangen? Zent? And Chair Schwartz.
Here.
We've got a quorum.
Very good. Thank you. With that, we're going to move on to our first item of business this evening, and that is for the consideration of approval of the minutes for both our September and October meetings. So with that, Commissioners, what are your wishes?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Lukens,
Second.
a second from Commissioner Johnson. Any discussion? And I'm not seeing or hearing any. Ben, would you please call roll?
Yes, Chair. Commissioner Larson?
Yes.
Lukens?
Yes.
Shell?
Yes.
Schmitz?
Yes.
Bittner?
Yes.
And Chair Schwartz.
Yes, the motion is approved. With that, we'll move on to our
Johnson. Sorry, Cole, I crossed your name out.
Yes.
Thanks for reminding me. How do you vote on that one, Commissioner
yes.
Johnson? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. With that, we'll move on to our consent agenda this evening. And we have a number of items on there that we'll take a look or that are available for approval. Ashley, staff is recommending a call for public hearing on all items. I'd like to start out by saying we're going to pull item number E, which is Stein's fourth edition, for some additional discussion after we decide what we're going to do with the consent agenda. So we've got the Clesac subdivision, and that is a call for public hearing. Boulder Ridge first edition, part of Lot 27, Block 1. It's a zoning map amendment. Staff recommends a call for public hearing. We have item number C, which is Northern Pacific edition, part of Lot 3, Block 4, and it is a zoning map amendment. And again, staff is recommending a call for public hearing. Item number D is Paradise Point subdivision, and it is a request for a preliminary plat, a zoning map and a zoning map amendment. Staff is recommending a call for public hearing. And item number F, which is South Meadows second edition and Burley Avenue edition. And it is a zoning map amendment request. And again, staff is recommending a call for public hearing. So right now we're pulling out item E for a number of additional discussion. Commissioners, what are your wishes on the remaining items?
Move to approve for the call for public hearing on all items except for F at this point in time.
Actually, E, thank
Or
you.
E, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner Schmitz. We have a motion.
Second.
And a second from Commissioner Bittner. With that, any discussion, Commissioners? I'm not hearing any. So Ben, would you please call roll?
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Lukens?
Yes.
Shell?
Yes.
Schmitz?
Yes.
Bittner?
Yes.
And Chair Schwartz.
Yes, motion is approved. With that, I believe Daniel is going to provide us some additional information on item number E, which is Stein's fourth edition.
Thank you, Chair Schwartz, Planning and Zoning Commission, for the opportunity to give a little bit of background on this item. So we typically receive signed applications from all property owners within a zoning district before a zoning map amendment moves forward. However, the ordinance does grant you and the City Commission the ability to initiate zoning ordinance map amendments. And we have done that in certain occasions, and this is one that you may consider doing so for. This is an area that is being proposed for a rezoning. There's 20 separate lots that are owned by 9 separate property owners. We did receive petitions from 7 of those 9 property owners to amend the zoning ordinance to go from R5 to R10. We did not receive signed applications from the other 2. And so if you would wish to, you could initiate on behalf of those other 2. That would account for Lot 6 and Lot 11, Block 25, Steins 4th Edition. Now, to be clear, the action today would just be to call for the hearing. All property owners have been notified that this application was submitted, and all property owners would be notified again of the hearing about to occur. So this would be simply to move this project forward. Staff's recommendation is to do so only because we have a plurality of the property owners wanting this, and it would be an opportunity to have this hearing and hear all the pros and cons for it from everybody. So that would be a request, but I can answer any questions you would have.
Commissioners, any questions for Daniel?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Bittner.
Yeah, I was just curious, he mentioned property owners. Is there any amount of property that is involved? You know, sometimes we have a certain number of owners that have more property than others. Just curious.
Sure, thank you, Commissioner Bittner. In this case, all of them are urban residential lots in the range of 10,000 square feet, 8 to 10,000 square feet. So 18 of those 20 lots are accounted for in signed applications. It's 2 of those 20 that are not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bittner. Additional questions for Daniel? Daniel, the 2 properties that were, I'm gathering they just did not respond at all, one way or the other.
So staff have not had communications with either. So we did, the letter that we sent out gave our contact information, my contact information, and said, please reach out if you have questions or comments. So I have not had personal conversations with either of these property owners. There wasn't a person among the neighbors who was organizing this and who did reach out. And I believe one of the property owners she described as neutral and just hadn't been able to sign. Another property owner may have had some concerns, I'm told, and I don't know what those are.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Again, I'll ask any other questions for Daniel. I'm not seeing or hearing any, Daniel. Thank you.
Thank you.
The recommendation from staff is to call for a public hearing on this agenda item. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
Motion to call for a public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion to call for a public hearing. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Lukens. Motion was from Commissioner Johnson. With that, Commissioners, any other discussion? If not, Ben, please call roll.
Chairman Schmitz,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Lukens,
Yes.
Shell,
Yes.
Bittner,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
and Chair Schwartz.
Yes, the motion is approved. With that, we'll move on to our regular agenda this evening. And the first item on our regular agenda is Washington Square Edition, Lot 1 and 3 and Block 1, and it's a request for a zoning map amendment. And Lauren is going to give us staff report this evening.
Good evening, Chairman Schwartz and Commissioners. First International Bank and Trust and Aligned Properties LLC are requesting approval of a zoning map amendment from the RT Residential Zoning District to the Conditional CG Commercial Zoning District on lots 1 and 3, Block 1, Washington Square Edition. The parcel is located in north central Bismarck, north of Interstate 94 and west of State Street, in the southwest quadrant of the intersection of North Washington Street and Ash Coulee Drive. Adjacent land uses include undeveloped land to the north across Ash Coulee Drive, townhomes and single-family residences to the west, a church and multifamily residences to the east across North Washington Street, and a restaurant, church, and additional undeveloped land to the south. The property has been identified as community mixed use in the future land use plan. These areas are places of commerce, employment, and residence for the Bismarck community. The owner of Lot 3 is proposing to develop the property to include office and commercial uses, including an orthodontic office and potentially a coffee shop with a drive-through. A special use permit for the drive-through coffee shop would be required for that specific use. The public has been duly notified of this request. A notice was published in the Bismarck Tribune on November 8th and 15th, and 40 letters were mailed to the owners of nearby properties on November 8th. To my knowledge, staff has not received comments regarding this request. This request was evaluated according to the standards contained in the Comprehensive Plan, Bismarck Code of Ordinances, and relevant state law. The proposed zoning map amendment is within the areas designated as community mixed use in the future land use plan, and the proposed zoning district would generally conform to the character of that district. Certain conditions will be applied to the proposed zoning district so that this area will be compatible with adjacent land uses. The proposed zoning district would be similar to the conditional CG commercial zoning district, which is directly adjacent to the south on Lot 2. This amendment would allow various lower intensity commercial uses, including retail, service, office, and medical uses. Although it would allow some higher intensity commercial uses like a drive-through coffee shop as a special use, it would restrict some more of those intensive uses, including retail group B, service group B, wholesale, trade and distribution, and hotel motel. Additionally, certain development standards applied to the proposed zoning, including landscaping, lighting, building height, and signs, would alleviate the potential incompatibilities between adjacent land uses. With these conditions and restrictions, development that may be anticipated from the proposed zoning would have no negative impact on the surrounding properties. The current zoning district of RT residential was established in February 2019, and conditions have changed since this time. Properties to the north across Ash Coulee Drive recently changed from the RT residential and CA commercial zoning districts to the CG commercial zoning district in July of 2024. As such, there's the possibility that higher intensity commercial uses will be developed in the future in this area of Bismarck. As a result of all findings contained in the staff report, City of Bismarck staff find that the proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance would not adversely impact the public health, safety, and general welfare, and is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan, Bismarck Code of Ordinances, and relevant state law. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the zoning map amendment from the RT residential zoning district to the conditional CG commercial zoning districts on Lot 1 and 3, Block 1, Washington Square Edition. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
Commissioners, questions for Lauren? I'm not seeing or hearing any, Lauren. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I'll open the podium. This is a public hearing, and I will open the podium for the owner or a representative. And I see Landon is going to step up.
Thank you, Chair Schwartz. Yes, Landon Eimler with Winston-Hagen Engineering, representing the applicants here. Just a couple of things to add to what Lauren had already mentioned. When we're looking at a property like this, we're looking at a place where they're effectively at the intersection of two arterial roads. So we anticipate this kind of area to be sort of commercially driven. But of course, there's some housing to the west of here, so we also would expect there to be some additional restrictions in there. Staff is basically, we effectively copied the existing restrictive CG zoning that is in the area, so we anticipate that there won't be an issue there. There will be additional landscaping depending on what type of use goes in here, so there will be some difference between this area and the housing to the west. But I can certainly try to answer any questions if you have them.
Commissioners, questions for Landon? Landon, I'm not seeing or hearing any. Thank you. With that, the podium is open for others that would care to address this agenda item. And I'm not seeing or hearing anybody jumping up to step to the podium. So with that, I'm going to close the public hearing on this agenda item. Lauren, do you have any additional comments?
No additional comments at this time, Chair.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, with that, this is a request for a zoning map amendment, and staff recommendation is to approve. What are your wishes?
I'll move to approve.
That was a motion to approve from Commissioner Larson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Bittner. With that, any additional discussion? And I'm not seeing or hearing any. Ben, would you please call roll?
Sure, Chair. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Schmitz?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Lukens?
Yes.
Shell?
Yes.
Bittner?
Yes.
And Chair Schwartz.
Yes, the motion is approved. With that, we're going to move on to item B in our regular agenda, which is the
Sure.
Kilburn.
Chair, and I'm going to recuse myself for this agenda item.
Thank you, Commissioner Schmitz. Is agenda item B is the Kilburn North Addition First Replat, Lot 1 and 2, Block 1. And it is.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Bittner.
did we just lose our quorum?
I believe that we can still proceed when, with Commissioner Schmidt stepping away from the table. Is that true, Ben?
Chair, that is correct. Once a quorum is established at the outset of the meeting, if that quorum is no longer available, the action can still be taken on the item as long as the quorum is established at the beginning of the meeting.
Thank you, Ben. Good question, Commissioner Bittner. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
So with that, Isaac is going to provide us with staff report.
Yes, thank you, Chair Schwartz and Commissioners. Our second regular agenda item today comes to us from the Ridge LLC, who are requesting approval of a zoning map amendment from the conditional CA commercial to a regular CA commercial, in other words, one without any conditions. As you can see on the screens before you and in the packets, this project is located in North Bismarck between North Washington Street and Normandy Street along the south side of 43rd Avenue Northeast. The current conditional CA commercial district contains a condition that would restrict certain retail and service uses to a size of 2,500 square feet per tenant space in a structure. The structure could have numerous tenant spaces, but each individual one would be limited to that 2,500 square feet in area. So the proposed regular CA commercial district would remove that size limiting factor to allow increased flexibility in commercial tenant spaces within the existing building, but it would not permit any new or different retail or service uses that were not already permitted to be done in that existing conditional district, just to be clear on that. I'll provide a little additional background information. Some of you may know this already, but just for everyone to be on the same page. So the applicant for this particular project originally requested a zoning map amendment to a CA commercial district in the first half of 2022 from the then existing RT residential district, which was established in 2014. At that time, staff recommended denial of the zoning change due to some inconsistencies with then current plans and the possibility of some negative impacts to the surrounding area as a result of potential development. The Planning and Zoning Commission denied that request at their meeting on June 22nd, 2022, and an appeal to the City Commission was denied on July 12th, 2022 as well. Following some additional discussions following those meetings, the applicant and city staff, between the applicant and city staff, the applicant then requested a conditional CA commercial district with the aforementioned conditions to address previous staff concerns and the potential negative impacts to the area. And staff then recommended approval of that conditional district, and it received final approval from the City Commission in February of 2023. So the property owner believes that conditions have changed since that time such that the removal of the conditions would facilitate further commercial development, and staff has now reviewed that new request through the lens of the Comprehensive Plan Together 2045, which was in the process of being approved back when the original application was first applied for, but it had not been fully approved yet at that time. So again, we're just looking at it through that new lens now. So the property is zoned conditional CA, as has been said, and the surrounding area is a variety of office uses, multifamily, residential, a nursing home. As you get a little further beyond that, there is some single and two family residential. And then to the northwest, you can see some undeveloped land there. That is also currently zoned CA commercial without any conditions. And, but of course, that is across 43rd Avenue Northeast. So the area is identified as neighborhood mixed use in the future land use plan, and these areas are described as social and commercial gathering spaces for the immediate surrounding residential areas. The public was notified of this request via publications in the Bismarck Tribune on November 8th and 15th, and 23 letters were mailed to nearby property owners on November 8th as well. To my knowledge, staff has received one inquiry for additional information on this request, but we have not received any formal public comments regarding this request prior to this meeting, again, to the best of my knowledge. As a cumulative result of all the findings in the staff reports before you, City of Bismarck staff find that the proposed zoning map amendment would not adversely impact public health, safety, and general welfare, and is consistent with the current comprehensive plan, Bismarck Code of Ordinances, and relevant state law. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the zoning map amendment from the conditional CA Commercial District to the CA Commercial District without any conditions for Kilburn North Addition First Replat, Lots 1 and 2, Block 1. Does the commission have any questions for me at this time?
Commissioners, questions for Isaac? Commissioner Shell.
Isaac, what were the other conditions, if any, on the I guess the current zoning?
Sure. I thank you for reminding me, Commissioner Shell, Chair Schwartz, and Commissioners. There was one other condition that stipulated no drive-throughs of any kind. That would also be proposed to go away. In a regular CA commercial district, the only drive-through that would be permitted via a special use permit is for a bank. So there would still be no restaurants or coffee shops or things like that with a drive-through in this district. The only new possibility would be a drive-through bank.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Shell. Commissioners, additional questions for Isaac? I'm not seeing or hearing any, Isaac. Thank you. This is a public hearing, so with that, I'm going to open the public hearing. Is either the requester or a representative here to speak to this agenda item? And if, sir, would you put your name on the log there, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Schwartz, Commissioners, and Isaac, thanks for the update there. So I don't have too much to add to what city staff...
And, sir, before you get moving, can I ask you who you are?
Oh, I'm sorry. Dan Keith, representing the Ridge, and also DK Orthodontics, which is the neighboring adjacent property. As was mentioned in staff report,
Dan.
we presented about a year and a half ago in the transition from requesting from an RT to a conditional CA based on adjacent properties, where it was located, and essentially, as Landon mentioned in the previous applicant's application, that the major thoroughfare of 43rd and essentially Washington seemed like it was fitting of a CA request. In working with city staff last year, we came to the agreement, as was mentioned, about a conditional CA that had the stipulations of a 2,500 square foot max tenant space, as well as the no drive-through unless it was a bank. At the time, we were still under construction, so construction was just beginning. In addition, that the Together 2045 plan was still being formulated. So the combination of those two, at least I surmised, that city staff was sort of asking for a proof of concept to ensure that what we were talking about building, which was a mixed-use, multi-tenant building, actually came to fruition rather than a 17,000 square foot single-tenant larger conglomeration that could upset traffic flow and neighboring areas. Since we went through a year and a half ago, the facility or the retail complex has been built 17,000 square foot with 7 tenant spaces. Currently 6 are leased, so there's only 1 space remaining at this point in time. But as a neighboring property owner as well, sharing a parking lot with this, I too, even though I was the owner of both properties, had hesitation or was concerned about making sure traffic flow in and out for our patient base was undisturbed. And at least to my knowledge, and from what's being reported by city staff and from just being there all day, every day, maybe too much, there have not seen any negative impacts of traffic flow into or out of Boulder Ridge right there. And I think our request simply in visiting with Daniel and his team with city staff was that that if we were to allow certain tenant spaces at 2,500, you could essentially have the same tenant under a different LLC joining next door and superseding the 2,500 square foot max without altering city staff concerns about traffic flow or things that might negatively impact the area. So we felt that the slight transition to a full CA zoning would not affect what was going on in the area and fell in line with Together 2045 and that neighborhood mixed use with the CA being adjacent across the street and adjacent to 43rd. Thank you. Any questions from commissioners?
Dan, thank you for the clarification. Yeah, commissioners, questions for Dan? I'm not hearing or seeing any.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. The podium is open for others that would care to address this agenda item. And I'm not seeing or hearing anybody. So with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Isaac, any additional comments?
None at this time, Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, commissioners, this is a request for a zoning map amendment. Staff recommendation is to approve. What are your wishes?
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve from Commissioner Johnson,
Second.
a second from Commissioner Lukens. Any additional discussion? And without, I'm not seeing or hearing any. So Ben, would you please call roll?
Yes, Chair. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Bittner?
Yes.
Lukens?
Yes.
Shell?
Yes.
And Chair Schwartz.
Yes, the motion is approved. With that, we'll move on to item number C in our regular agenda, which is the Huckler Park Edition, lots 1 and 3, block 1. And Jenny is going to provide us with staff report this evening.
Thank you, Chairman Schwartz, Commissioners. The Community Development Department is requesting approval of a zoning map amendment from the Agricultural Zoning District to the RR Residential Zoning District on Lot 1, Block 1, Huckler Park. This request is located northwest of Bismarck, west of River Road, in the southeast quadrant of the intersection of Sandy River Drive and Fernwood Drive, and consists of 7.11 acres. You considered this request at your October 23rd meeting and called for a public hearing. The property owners intend to apply for a rural residential lot split in the future. The zoning for this entire section, there's a little bit of a history here, was adopted by Hay Creek Township as rural residential in 1959. When Bismarck assumed the extraterritorial jurisdiction in 1978, portions of this section were in agricultural use and rezoned to agriculture, and developed portions of the section were kept as rural residential. This property was not platted or developed at the time and was therefore rezoned to agriculture. In 2000, Huckler Park was platted for rural residential development. Records show that during the platting process, in staff reports and staff analysis for the plat, staff noted the 1959 rural residential zoning and not the 1978 rezoned to agriculture for this particular lot. The plat was approved and building permits were issued for this property. However, our zoning map has been consistently and correctly identifying this area as agriculture, at least since it was digitized in the 2000s. However, from the time of platting to digitization, we didn't have that correct. The proposed zoning map amendment is being initiated by staff to bring the property with an existing single-family residence into conformance with our zoning ordinance. The public has been notified of this request. A notice was published in the Tribune on November 8th and 15th, and 50 letters were mailed to the owners of nearby properties on the 8th. We had an inquiry, well, just one, neither for or against, just trying to understand how the zoning happened in this particular area. To my knowledge, we have not received any formal written comments. This request was evaluated according to standards contained within our comprehensive plan, Bismarck Code of Ordinances, and state law. And as a result of all the findings contained in the staff report, staff find that the proposed zoning map amendment would not adversely impact the public health, safety, and general welfare, and is consistent with the comprehensive plan, Bismarck Code of Ordinances, and state law. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the zoning map amendment from the Agricultural Zoning District to the Rural Residential Zoning District for Lot 1, Block 1, Huckler Park, as outlined in your draft ordinance. Do you have questions?
Questions for Jenny? Commissioner Schell?
Jenny, can you speak to what the triggering action of why how this was brought to the attention of staff in the first place.
Thank you, Commissioner Schell. Commissioners, the property owner had called and asked about what we call a rural residential lot split. You've seen these in the past. In order to do that, you have to have a rural residentially zoned lot. At the time we looked into it, we noticed kind of the chain of events in the course of action that happened from 1959 to 78 to 2000 to now. So we're making this change staff initiated to correct that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schell. Commissioners, additional questions for Jenny? I'm not seeing or hearing any, Jenny. Thank you. This is a request for a public hearing. So with that, I'm going to open the public hearing. Is either the, I should say, owner or requester, there really wouldn't be one in this particular case, I don't think, here to speak to this agenda item. So with that, the podium is open for others that would care to speak to this agenda item. And I'm not seeing or hearing anybody. So with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Jenny, any additional comments?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, Commissioners, this is a zoning map amendment request. Staff recommendation is to approve. What are your wishes?
Move to approve as presented.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Schmitz.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Lukens. I think you were first, but thank you, Commissioner Bittner. With
You're welcome.
that, is there any additional discussion? And I'm not seeing or hearing any. Ben, would you please call roll?
Yes, Chair. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Bittner?
Yes.
Lukens?
Yes.
Schell?
Yes.
Schmitz?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
And Chair Schwartz.
Yes, the motion is approved. With that, we move on to item D in our regular agenda. And this is a realignment of future Rocky Road. And it's a request for a major street plan amendment. And Isaac is going to provide us with staff report.
Good evening again, Chair Schwartz and Commissioners. For this regular agenda item, the Community Development Department is requesting approval of a major street plan amendment, approximately as shown on the screens before you, tentatively being referred to as the realignment of future portions of Rocky Road. It is located to the northeast of Bismarck, roughly between 57th Avenue Northeast to the south, 71st Avenue Northeast to the north, and between Endicott Drive on the western side and 66th Street Northeast to the eastern side. This plan amendment would shift the east-west future collector roadway further to the north to, as you can see there, the dashed line shows the current alignment in the existing plan, and then the project area would be that proposed alignment. So this plan would shift that proposed east-west future collector roadway further to the north to bypass some existing buildings and tree rows, while maintaining the general connectivity of the major street plan's current form. Another way of seeing that here is shown on the screens with the existing conditions on the left and the proposed conditions on the right. The project appeared before the Commission for a public hearing on September 25th of 2024, when it was formally connected to the major subdivision final plat and zoning change request for Landsberger's second subdivision. At that meeting, the Commission requested that the project be separated into a standalone project to better facilitate further conversations with nearby landowners following the discussions during that hearing. So, a few notes before I get back to that topic. The proposed alignment area would be entirely through land that is currently zoned agricultural and is in a generally undeveloped state, but with some rural residential properties around as well. And with the exception of the northern portion of what is now soon to formally be called Landsberger's second subdivision, that would be rural residential as well, but that is not finalized quite yet, but that was approved by the respective commissions. So aside from that particular spot, the area is identified generally in the future land use plan as either urban reserve midterm or urban reserve long-term in the future land use plan, and these areas are generally described as being potentially suitable for future urban development, but are not projected to be annexed by the year 2045, so at some point in the distant future, depending on development trends. So back to the more precise topic of why this was split into a standalone project. before this topic was separated into a standalone project, the public was notified of this request via publications in the Bismarck Tribune on September 13th and 20th, and 53 letters were mailed to nearby property owners on September 13th. But to better facilitate discussions and hear out any concerns that nearby property owners might have, it was again formally notified after it was separated into its standalone project on via more publications in the Bismarck Tribune on November 8th and 15th, and 53 letters were sent to nearby property owners on November 1st. That is a week earlier than we would typically do in our notification process, just to try make sure there was plenty of time for mail to reach everyone and hopefully overcome any difficulties with mail service, even though we don't have necessarily direct control over that. The letters sent out on November 1st contained additional information regarding the major street plan and providing more details on what it does and what it does not do, in addition to providing the standard staff contact information, inviting any questions or concerns that property owners might have. So, in general, the plan is meant to serve as a long-range guiding document for some existing and future roadways in the Bismarck area, but it is not intended to be a legally binding document in the same way that an ordinance for the city or the county might be. So it does not necessarily specify precise locations for future roads or address many critical details such as when any construction, if any, would take place, how it would be funded, things like that, but is meant to try, say, given current conditions, it appears that if the city were to continue expanding in this direction, this could potentially be a suitable place for a more major road, but it does not take away any direct control from landowners. So between the previous hearing and today, staff have had some conversations with property owners via email, telephone, and in person to provide additional information and answer any questions that they had. To my knowledge, though, as of right now, up to this meeting, staff have not received any formal written comments regarding this request, either as a result of those discussions or from other nearby property owners whom we did not have direct conversations with. But as a cumulative result of the findings contained in the staff report, City of Bismarck staff find that the proposed major street plan amendment would not adversely impact public health, safety, and general welfare, and that it is generally consistent with the comprehensive plan, Bismarck Code of Ordinances, and relevant state law. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the major street plan amendment in the previously described area to the northeast of Bismarck. Does the commission have any questions for me at this time?
Commissioners, questions for Isaac?
I have one.
Commissioner Lukens.
Did the proposed route change at all from when we reviewed it in September or not?
Thank you, Commissioner Lukens. Commissioners, the proposed route did not change from the previous meeting that you saw at a public hearing to now. This route was chosen after conversations between city staff, county staff, particularly Burleigh County Highway Department, as well as some members of the Bismarck-Mandan MPO. But yes, in between those two meetings, it did not change.
Thank you, Commissioner Lukens. Commissioners, additional questions? Commissioner Johnson.
Did you have conversations with gentlemen who expressed some concern with it going through his property?
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioners, there were, I believe, 2 individuals who spoke at the public hearing. We do not maintain comprehensive records of people's personal contact information. So that was another reason why we sent out the letters a week ahead of time to try and make sure that everyone would get that information. And one of the property owners did reach out to us then to discuss it further. I don't remember off the top of my head if it was the same person who expressed that particular concern or if it was the other one, but we did speak with one of the individuals who spoke at the previous meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioners, additional questions for Isaac? I'm not seeing or hearing any, Isaac. Thank you. With that, this is a request for a public hearing, and so I will open the public hearing and open the podium for those that would care to speak to this agenda item. And if you would please add your name to the log, that would be wonderful.
Karen Bonnet. And we live up in the area of this proposed new road. We live right off Rocky Road. There is a current road there, which some in the public may not necessarily be aware of. And the current owner of that projected, or the prospective new Rocky Road worked tirelessly trying to get something developed there so he could open up from agriculture to putting in lots, like 2-acre lots, because he didn't want anything small and make it like a city lot. And he was denied that in every way, shape, and form. And at this point, it's still pasture. And I hear nothing and wonder whether someone has looked into that, whether that will affect his pasture. Because there is an existing Rocky Road, what is the need for that new Rocky Road? The existing Rocky Road would go exactly from straight west from 66th all the way to 57th or further to 43rd if necessary. And I think that needs to be looked at. I don't mind it going north as long as that owner has input on it. But I don't like to see him, he's no longer right there. His family lives at the house now. But it concerns me a great deal because it feels like he's being railroaded. That's from my own perspective, but that's what it feels like, because it seems like it's from the top down rather than from the bottom up. And so how was that change proposed from the current Rocky Road to the prospective Rocky Road? And that would be one question. Would anybody have an answer for that?
I think, Isaac, would you care to address that?
Sure. Chair Schwartz, I can shed perhaps a little bit of light on this. So there were discussions that took place between city staff, including community development staff, engineering staff, Burley County Highway Department, and the Bismarck-Mandan MPO. And we looked at this particular area and acknowledged that the current alignment of that road went through, well, proposed road was going through tree rows and nearer to existing buildings than would be suitable for if any construction actually did take place. Technically a road could go anywhere with enough, money and expertise to do so, but it would involve tearing out tree rows that, if there was a way to still maintain that general connectivity, but avoid doing damage to existing, conditions, we looked at different alternatives. We looked at shifting it further south. We looked at shifting it further north. I believe Burley County Highway had some concerns that if it was shifted to the south, it would be too close to have a potential future roadway close to 57th Avenue Northeast. I don't want to speak too much for Burley County Highway, but just my own recollection of those conversations. So that's a broad overview of how this particular route was chosen, wanting to have it be not too close to other either existing or possibly future major roadways, while also still having a minimal impact on existing features as well.
And does the commission have approval from that property owner, or is this going to be forced?
Commissioner Schell?
If I can maybe just clarify, I know Isaac said it earlier in his presentation, but I think your line of questioning just maybe could put some of this at ease. This plan is just a plan, so this is not something that the city or the county or any other government agency is intending to construct next year, the year after, anytime soon. This plan sets forth the groundwork so that if those property owners elect to plat their land, subdivide it, develop it into a higher density from what the pasture is today, it provides that connectivity that we would eventually see as these pieces come in and plat, similar to what the platting action was in our September meeting. This just lays out where we would envision that roadway network to be so that we are left with a network when this is all said and done and platted 20 years, 50 years, 100 years from now, as opposed to a bunch of not interconnected pieces. So there's no intention to buy right-of-way, build a road, any of that. This would be intended that as these properties develop or wish to develop at the landowners choosing at the timing that they want to move forward with that is when we'd anticipate seeing some of these rights of ways dedicated. So just maybe wanted to clarify that piece for you.
Okay, okay. And then will it also be, will he be compensated for that?
I could take the next one.
Commissioner Shell,
In
let's
terms of
proceed.
if the property owner had desires to subdivide their property into, changing in a zoning change to change it from a pasture egg use into something that was, higher density, with that comes the dedication of public right-of-way typically for the road network that they need. So the compensation generally isn't there for, in that instance, because the landowner themselves is asking to bring in public streets, public roads, public water systems, et cetera, to develop the property. So once again, we're not looking to do this project now. If, for whatever reason, the city or county or any other government agency elected to move forward with the project prior to that property platting, there would be compensation for those landowners for the right to use their land for a roadway or a water main system or whatever that improvement would be.
Okay, so he would be a part of that decision-making?
That
It
is
wouldn't be done from the top without his input?
100% correct.
Okay, okay. And what is the intent, the potential intent to build that when you're saying 20 years, 50 years, 100 years? We know it's not going to be 50 or 100 years because the rest of us, none of us are going to be around by then. Not very likely anyway, so.
I guess I can add, like I said, we have this is a mile-long segment of this major street plan, but this plan exists for every section of land surrounding Bismarck. So the plans are in place so that we know as properties come in and plat where to place the road rights of ways, but really there's not a timeline initiated in that plan or even discussed in that plan of when these would occur, because it is at the pace of development. If Bismarck, for whatever reason, grew at a ridiculously high pace, we would anticipate finding ourselves into this area with residential development and other development sooner rather than later. If that's not the case, though, it could be 50 years from now until we get to some of these spots.
Okay, and his view of it at the time was, I believe, for 2-acre lots, so that it wouldn't become densely populated.
I guess I can't speak to what the
reduce
future
the use
land
of
use
lights
plan.
and those kind of things, because you get too many lights, just like Silver Ranch area is already getting a lot of lights, and all those lights divert bird population, insect population, and that stuff is reducing already. We're seeing it in our neighborhood, because we're just right off Rocky Road, and you already see it just because of those lights. How is that is that being discussed as a potential to mitigate the lights?
I guess that's outside of the scope, I would say, of what this item is or what we're talking about here.
And so you still would take written comments from property owners?
Certainly.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Karen, does that answer all your questions?
Most of them. I think so. Thank you.
Good deal. All right, thank you. With that, the podium is open for others that would care to address this agenda item.
I'm Jim Bonnet, and I just have one question. The map, it seems to me the map shows this new Rocky Road north of the existing Rocky Road. Is that right? So what happens to the existing Rocky Road? If you want to call the new one the new Rocky Road, are we the old Rocky Road, or does it disappear?
Sure, Schwartz, I can address that. So this is not, so the existing constructed portion of Rocky Road, that's, nothing will change there. That road will still be called that.
Okay.
This is just saying that if that road were to be continued to be constructed to the west at some point, the exact alignment as far as the plan is concerned is just shifting a little bit. It's not taking away, adding a new one without taking away an old one. It's just shifting the existing one.
I'm still confused. You say you're shifting old Rocky Road to new Rocky Road? What happens to the old Rocky Road?
It's just shifting the proposed
why not just
future
call the
portion.
new road something else other than Rocky Road?
Commissioner Shell?
Sure, maybe I can clarify. I think we had a couple of different mindsets going on here, but the existing Rocky Road that is constructed right now, nothing would change with that one. There'd be no access changes, there'd be no street name changes. As Isaac noted, if that road is extended, it's likely to be called Rocky Road and continue its way towards 52nd Street, and then that would just be one longer alignment of Rocky Road with the yellow that was shown on the map earlier being the newest segment of it, but the existing segments that are there today would not change.
Good enough. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jim. With that, the podium is open for others that would care to address this agenda item. And I'm not seeing anybody jumping up and coming to the podium. So with that, I'm going to close the public hearing on this agenda item. Commissioners, actually, Isaac, any additional comments?
None at this time.
All right, thank you. With that, Commissioners, this is a request for a major street plan amendment, and staff recommendation is to approve. What are your wishes? Just a moment, please.
Left mine.
Okay. So again, staff recommendation is to approve. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
I'll move to approve.
Excuse me?
It's Amber. I'll move to approve.
All right, thank you, Amber. We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Larson.
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Schmidt. With that, any additional discussion? And Commissioner Johnson.
One comment. I wish the person that was here in September was here to either voice support or not for this, because he was adamantly against the new alignment being proposed. And I would understand, and if I were in his shoes, I would feel the same way. There's another property to the east side of this realignment that's going to have the same issue, where you have this proposed future road cutting through it at a diagonal through a 40-acre chunk that's basically going to leave that very hard to develop. And I understand it's not saying the road's going to go here in that exact location or tomorrow, but you have this impediment to development or something that needs to be accommodated on this property that was not there previously, that is there now, that they're going to be expected to accommodate now. So both these property owners are going to have this road cutting through at some, I'm assuming it's shown as a diagonal for speed and gradual turns. They're going to be expected to accommodate that on their property. And I feel like we just take this too lightly, that we're just throwing this line on there thinking it really doesn't have any implications when it is going to have implications. And to not have those people's input and support, it doesn't feel right to me. It feels like there's just something being thrown on their property that is going to have real implications someday. So that's it.
Appreciate your comments, Commissioner Johnson.
Mr. Chairman.
Good point. Yes, Commissioner Bittner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to echo those concerns. I haven't seen anything that gave me an indication that the landowners up there are accepting of this. And I further haven't had any communications from the highway department, the county highway department, in support of this either. And I'm very reluctant to support it in the absence of knowing that those citizens are okay with it, because I think we all know that these future road plans become the road map. We can say all day long that, it's not really written in stone. It can be changed later. I would say good luck with that. So I'm not comfortable with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bittner. Commissioners, additional comments? I guess I would like to reach out to Isaac just to, for additional, you did indicate how many letters were sent out?
Yes, there were 53 letters that were sent out to basically whoever received a letter last time received another letter this time.
So it was the same number that were sent
That is
out as
correct,
last time?
yes.
Okay. And I tend to agree, Commissioners. The gentleman that appeared and spoke to us last time complained that he did not or was not notified, if I remember correctly. And so I too would have a concern that maybe he's not being notified once again. I don't know. Was that you, sir? Yes. And were you notified? Yes. Okay, and do you have concerns?
Not at this point. We had a meeting with Isaac recently, and I fully understand the gist of all of this, and understand that things could change further down the road, and basically at peace with where you're at right now.
I apologize. I did not recognize you or know your name, but thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Bittner.
without him being at the microphone, I couldn't hear a word he said.
All right. Sir, would you please step up? And if you would, add your name to the log just so we know that you've been here. Thank you, Commissioner Bittner. I apologize for that.
John Schaffner. I am the person that had a unsureness at the September meeting, and have since had a meeting with Isaac and the other gentleman from the county, and am fully understand the whole process, and understand that we would be very involved if someday this comes into fruition, and are in agreement with it. A bulk of that road would go through my property, but again, we do understand the concept.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Bittner, did you catch all of that?
I did, and that I'm relieved to hear that, that the landowner is okay. So I'm not hearing any real reason to oppose it then.
Yeah.
Correct, sir?
Correct, yes, and thank you for your concern and follow up on that. I appreciate that, but yes, we are at peace with it at this time, so.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. I appreciate you clarifying that.
Thank you for coming to the podium. With that, Commissioners, any additional comments? And I'm not hearing or seeing any. So with that, we have a motion on the table and a second to approve. Ben, would you please call roll?
Yes, Chair. Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Schmitz.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Lukens.
Yes.
Shell.
Yes.
Bittner.
Yes.
And Chair Schwartz.
Yes, the motion is approved. With that, we move on to item number E in our regular agenda, which is Wachters Addition, Lot 3, Block 6. And it's a request for a special use permit, and I believe Lauren is going to provide us with staff report this evening.
Good evening, Chairman Schwartz and Commissioners. The University of Mary is requesting approval of a special use permit for a child care center on part of Lot 3, all Lot 4, and part of Lot 5, Block 6, Wachters Addition. The parcel is located in south central Bismarck between South 7th Street and South 8th Street and south of East Bowen Avenue. The parcel is adjacent to Kirkwood Mall. To the west across South 7th Street, retail stores, restaurants, and offices to the north and south, and single-family dwellings and manufactured home parks to the east across South 8th Street. The property has been identified as destination mixed use in the future land use plan, and these areas are the major commercial and employment centers that serve the entire regional trade area of Bismarck. The applicant would like to provide childcare in their existing building to staff and the community, as well as train and educate in the field of early childhood development at this location. The public has been duly notified of this request. Notice was published in the Bismarck Tribune on November 8th and 15th, and 10 letters were mailed to the owners of nearby properties on November 8th as well. To my knowledge, staff has not received comments regarding this request. The request was evaluated according to standards contained within the Comprehensive Plan, Bismarck Code of Ordinances, and relevant state law. Based on the site plan submitted, the interior and exterior space requirements would be met. Adequate parking for employees and visitors will also be met for this area. The applicant is aware that they will need to meet building and fire code requirements, including the installation of an automated sprinkler system, and that they will need to adhere to the health and sanitation requirements for a child care center. As a result of all findings contained in the staff report, City of Bismarck staff find that the proposed special use permit would not adversely impact the public health, safety, and general welfare, and is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan, Bismarck Code of Ordinances, and relevant state law. Therefore, based on the findings contained within the staff report, staff recommends approval of a special use permit for a child care center on part of Lot 3, all Lot 4, and part of Lot 5, Block 6, Wachters Addition. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
Commissioners, questions for Lauren? I'm not seeing or hearing any, Lauren. Thank you. This is a request for a public hearing, so with that, I'm going to open the public hearing. Is either the owner or requester here? I should say requester or representative.
Commissioners, thank you. Luke Seidling, I'm the Director of Physical Plant for the University of Mary, representing the university in our request here. So, of course, we all know that the university has a decades-long history of forming leaders for our community. We started that in 1959, primarily in healthcare and education. This is another way we can continue to partner with our community to form our educators in education, and at the same time, meeting the needs of our community. Right now, we have approximately 21% of slots of licensed child care available to the need of child care in Burleigh County, right? And so this will continue to support that by providing a 72, thank you, need to phone a friend, additional licensed child care spots for Burleigh County. We're excited to be able to provide that service to this community. In addition, we're partnering with the Department of Commerce as well as other agencies to support this project. Happy to take any questions.
And sir, your name was
Luke Seidling, and I'm the Director of Physical Plant.
Luke, thank you. Commissioners, questions for Luke? Commissioner Shell.
Luke, would the entire building be converted to child care or just a portion of it?
We'll be utilizing the entire building.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Shell. Commissioners, additional questions for Luke? I'm not seeing or hearing any, Luke. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, the podium is open for others that would care to address this agenda item. And I'm not seeing or hearing others wanting to step up. So with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, this is a request for a special use permit for childcare, and staff recommendation is to approve. What are your wishes?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Bittner.
Second.
A second from Commissioner Johnson. Additional discussion or comments, commissioners? And I'm not seeing
Chair,
or hearing.
sorry, Chair and fellow commissioners, I guess I have a little hesitation, admittedly, on this. This is one of our busiest roadways we have in the community, and we definitely have a need for more childcare. But I'm thinking of the part of the childcare facility is the necessity to have that outdoor recreational space available. And so we're taking one of our very, very busy roadways and putting a childcare facility, and admittedly a fenced area, but children right off of that roadway. And so I realize safety is going to be of the utmost concern, but it also seems slightly odd to me to take that corridor and have children playing in an area right off of it.
All right, thank you. Appreciate the comment. Certainly, Luke, if you'd like to.
Commissioners, thank you. Absolutely, of course, priority for the center will be safety for the children. There are two individual outdoor play spaces. They'll both be fenced and enclosed. Neither of them have access coming from 7th Street or from the west side of the building at all. And so there's kind of direct access into the play areas from the building, so that children won't be in a traffic, kind of high traffic area at all. So, thank you.
Thank you, Luke. All right, the podium is open for others that would care to comment. I'm not seeing or hearing any, so with that, I'm going to close the public hearing for this agenda item. Commissioners, again, this is a special use permit request for childcare, and the staff's.
Yeah, we have a first from Commissioner Bittner and a second from Commissioner Johnson. Yep.
Thank you, Ben. I got confused there. Any additional comments from commissioners? Not seeing or hearing any. So with that, Ben, would you please call roll?
Yes, Chair. Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Bittner,
Yes.
Lukens,
Yes.
Shell,
Yes.
Schmitz,
Yes.
and Chair Schwartz.
Yes, the motion is approved. With that, we move on to item F in our regular agenda, Keaveney Commercial Park, audits lots 8, block 1. And it's a request for a special use permit, a drive-through, and Isaac is going to provide us with staff report this evening.
Good evening again, Chair Schwartz and Commissioners. So this regular agenda item comes to us from Gateway Fashion Mall LLC, who are requesting approval of a special use permit for a drive-through ATM on Auditor's Lot 8, Block 1, Keaveney Commercial Park replat lots, less lots A, B, and C, and less that part taken for lots 1 and 4, Block 1, Keaveney Commercial Park, second replat. For the sake of clarity, I'm just going to refer to it from here on out as Auditor's Lot 8, Block 1. This project is located in north central Bismarck, west of State Street on the north side of Gateway Drive. I will note that standard practice for any type of development project that comes before the Planning and Zoning Commission is to show the project area as the parcel. In this particular case, the parcel for Gateway Mall is rather large, and the exact location that the drive-through ATM will be is a small fraction of that. It would be on the south side of the parcel, on the southern edge of that south parking lot, adjacent to Gateway Avenue, on the north side of that Gateway Avenue there. So the property is zoned CG commercial, and a majority of the land surrounding the project area is also zoned CG commercial, containing a mix of uses ranging from restaurants to offices and hotels, and some apartments or condos further to the west, where some land is also zoned RT. The area is identified as destination mixed use in the future land use plan, which are described as major commercial and employment centers that serve the entire regional trade area of Bismarck as well as visitors. The public was notified of this request via publications in the Bismarck Tribune on November 8th and 15th, and 98 letters were mailed to nearby property owners on November 8th. Staff did receive a couple of inquiries for further information regarding this request, but to the best of my knowledge, staff have not received any formal written public comments regarding it prior to this meeting. So as a cumulative result of all the findings contained in these staff reports, City of Bismarck staff find that the proposed special use permit for a drive-through ATM would not adversely impact public health, safety, and general welfare, and that it is generally consistent with the comprehensive plan and Bismarck Code of Ordinances and relevant state law. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the special use permit for a drive-through ATM on Auditor's Lot 8, Block 1, Keaveney Commercial Park replat. Does the commission have any questions for me at this time?
Commissioners, questions for Isaac? I'm not seeing or hearing any, Isaac. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
This is a request for a public hearing, so with that, I'm going to open the public hearing as either the requester or a representative here. And I'm not seeing anybody.
Chair, there are 3 individuals who are online remotely, and
Okay.
I'm not sure if any would care to speak, but if any online would care to speak, this would be the appropriate time.
Ben, would they fall into the category of being either the requester or?
I think they appeared to be associated with the applicant,
Okay.
the other 2. Kate, I see you're unmuted, but we can't hear anything from you.
Can you hear anything now?
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear
we
you.
do.
Awesome. Hello. I am Kate Chapman, and we are proposing the installation of a drive-up ATM, as mentioned, on the south side of the property. There shouldn't be any effects to the traffic. There are no parking spaces to be affected. Everything should be pretty cohesive, sorry. Tom, do you have anything to say on this, or Joey either?
Yeah, hi, this is Tom Chapman. Am I muted? No, I'm good. Okay. No, we don't have anything else more. I don't think, unless there's any questions, we'll open it up for any questions and be able to field those hopefully.
Okay, commissioners, do you have questions for either Kate or Tom? I'm not seeing or hearing any. So with that point, I think we're probably good. Are there others that would care to address this agenda item? And I'm not seeing or hearing any, so with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, and I should ask, Isaac, any additional comments?
Thank you, Chair Schwartz. I would just add that this project is also going through the city's site plan review process, and to my knowledge is ready to be approved there if this were to be approved, the special use permit tonight.
Thank you. All right, with that, commissioners, this is a request for a special use permit for a drive-through. Staff recommends approval. What are your wishes?
Move to approve as presented.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Schmitz.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Lukens. Any additional discussion? And I'm not seeing or hearing any. So Ben, would you please call roll?
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Lukens?
Yes.
Shell?
Yes.
Schmitz?
Yes.
Bittner?
Yes.
And Chair Schwartz.
Yes, the motion is approved. Moving on to item G in our regular agenda is an agenda item for public notice and signs, and Daniel is going to provide us with staff report this evening.
Hey, good evening, Chair Schwartz. Now that I'm situated, this is a request from the Community Development Department for a zoning ordinance text amendment to incorporate placement of public notice signs into procedures for projects involving a public hearing. I'd like to give you a little bit of background in what we do already for public notification, so you can see how physical signs would fit within that overall process. So there is a goal in our comprehensive plan, and I'll just read this verbatim. And we would like to inform interested parties about upcoming public hearings with the Planning and Zoning Commission through a variety of communication tools, including letters, online maps, and on-site signs. We currently use the following methods. We issue advertisements in the Bismarck Tribune. This is mandated by state law, so throughout the state, legal advertisement is a prerequisite for holding any public hearing. Some people may not be aware of this, but the North Dakota Newspaper Association does take all of those ads that we publish physically in the paper, and they do have a statewide website, so you can kind of go on there and find Burleigh County and drill down and to see all of these advertisements as well. Just a little tidbit of knowledge if anyone is interested in checking that out. It's a helpful tool, although we are very limited in space, and the audience is not as targeted as some of the other methods that we do have. Secondly, we send out letters to nearby property owners. We call these APOs internally, affected property owner mailings. This is required in our zoning ordinance, and so we do as staff follow this regularly. You hear from us even this evening on how many letters get sent out. We send to 350 feet a radius of the property boundary within the city or a quarter mile outside of the city. And everybody in that area does receive these letters, hopefully. There are cases where we hear that they don't get there, or maybe they don't get there quite in time for what they would like. But that is our practice. One thing that you may not be aware of, we do use property owner databases that we have from assessing to send these out. That is a limitation of this method. Currently, if you're renting a house or renting an apartment, you may not get these letters if your landlord doesn't communicate that to you. That is just something that we currently are doing. We are intending to change how these letters will look. We currently send out a full-page physical 11 by 7, 8.5 by 11 letter. We are intending to change that to a postcard. A lot of cities are doing this. There are some benefits to that. You know, you get a letter from the city, you might throw it on your counter for a couple of days until you open it and figure out what it is. By that time, it may be too late to make it to the public hearing. The postcard is immediately gives you that information right up front. And it's a smaller size, but it really, if you can get the basic communication in that postcard, there's online resources to find more. So that's something we would intend to change in the near future. Finally, we do have online options for anyone to stay abreast of what the city is doing, what the Planning Commission is doing. What I'd like to do is just kind of demonstrate some of these because actually one is fairly new and you won't be aware of this yet. And so you and the public can see what this may look like. Let me see if, okay, it doesn't look like, I'm going to reshare my screen and see if this works. Okay, here we are. So this is a dashboard that is available on the planning website and has been for a couple of weeks now. So what anyone from the public can do is they can see all projects that are currently in the pipeline in the community development department from the moment a complete application is received to the moment we record that plat or whatever that final document is. The items will be indicated with a shade of red if there's a public hearing being called for that item. So the ones we heard tonight are on here: Hookler Park and Washington Square Edition. So you can select any of these items and then the map will zoom over to the location and you'll see some basic project information, when they applied, who's applying, basically what are they asking for. And once a staff report is released, you can click on this and open up the staff report. Now the staff reports are only released the Friday prior to the public hearing. So that information will only become available when it is there. However, even early in a process, you can at least get enough information to find out who to contact and find out how to learn more about what's going on. So this could be a good tool for anyone from the public who might want to follow what the city is doing. Now, of course, if you wouldn't know what to look at this necessarily if something is happening in your neighborhood. But if you are have a habit of checking this, you can see what the city is doing. Another option we do have, and this is the Agenda Center. Many of you will be familiar with this. We did change this summer, so there's a new software that we are using. One thing I'd like to highlight this evening, just so everyone is aware, it looks like I have to sign in again. Pardon me for a second here. To use this option, you do need to create a username and account in Civic Plus, which is our service here. But once you do that, you can sign up for a subscription, and any of the city boards and authorities, commissions, you can select which ones you want to get an email notification for. And if you select that little lever, you will get an email every time an agenda is posted, every time an agenda is changed. And that's a good way to keep on top of this. Once again, that only happens the Friday before the meeting, so you won't get that advance notice, but at least you'll get the most thorough information in that agenda packet. I just want to show that for the benefit of the public. I think I will have to stop this and reshare to go back. Sorry, I wasn't aware of that. Okay, so finally, what would be the new item that this ordinance would adopt? These would be physical signs that would be placed at the site of any public hearing. The message would be very simple, just to identify people that something is happening here. It could be visible for people driving by or walking by. Now, the text would not be sized and appropriate for a driver, so you really would need to get out of your vehicle or walk by to really read the sign in detail, or certainly use a QR code. We wouldn't want drivers to do that. So this is a very common practice throughout the country, although not in North Dakota, and it has not been historically. Some examples: Billings, Montana. There's a sign here. They utilize a standard sign, and then they have project-specific information just posted to that on letter sheets. Raleigh, North Carolina has a sign that's fairly basic, but just has project-specific information so you can follow up on whatever that hearing is. The more traditional style, this one is out of a town in Indiana, is to really post a lot of the information on a sign. Of course, these are get quite extensive in what's being posted. And then the opposite side of the spectrum is a town in Missouri that just simply doesn't have any project-specific information, just says public hearing, call this. And so that's the whole spectrum of different options that might be available. We have a preliminary design, if this were to go forward, of something that we could do. And the way this would work is the sign would be standardized, or most of it would be created by the city in the community development department. And then as the projects are generated, we could use 8.5 by 11 vinyl stickers that would be attached to that sign for that specific project and then could be ripped off and reused for future purposes. The stickers would have the date of the hearing and then some IDs that you could use to look up that project, and also a QR code that would take you directly to project information online. So how would the process work for installing these signs? This is all proposed. The way the ordinance is actually written is the only thing written into stone would be the 10-day time limit. They would have to be installed 10 days prior to the hearing. Other than that, it refers to guidelines set by the Community Development Department. So this would be our proposed process, that the signs would be required prior to the first public hearing. So we do have a lot of projects that have multiple public hearings, and our philosophy is really only the first one we need to really make sure people are getting to, and then you can follow the chain of events to get to the further meetings. And that is when we send out our APO letters. We don't resend those letters out multiple times, or if there's a continued hearing, we don't resend those letters out. So we would follow that same procedure. So as I mentioned, the city would create the sign, we create the stickers, we put them on there. The applicant would pick up the sign from the city and they would bring it to their own properties to install. They know their properties best. They could do the one call for utilities if they would be posting it into the ground, or they could stick it on a structure. They would have that ability to do that. Once they do that, they just take a photo to verify with a timestamp on it that this has been done. The applicant and property owner would be responsible for making sure it stays there for the course of the time period until the public hearing is held, and then they would return to the city. We'd take out the sticker and reuse it for a future project. That's the intention. So how does this fit into our overall communication strategy? One thing it's maybe interesting to note is we only have limited information at the beginning of a project process, and as we move along, we can share more publicly. When we get these applications, and you don't see all of this happening, but there's a lot of back and forth and negotiation with staff. There's a lot of technical details that are being worked through during the staff review with the engineering department, public works, and police, fire. Everyone gets involved. So at the very beginning, we really don't put a lot of information out there into the public to avoid confusion. But really, once staff is finished reviewing, that's when we issue the newspaper ad. That's when we send out the mailings, and that's when the signs would go out. And then there would be a good period of time, usually 2 weeks or so, for the public to ask questions, call us, and also during that time, staff is working on the more detailed staff report. And then when that is released in the Agenda Center, the full information that you have at your disposal is out there in the public. And that is really the overall goal here, is to have everything out in the open records, open public meetings, and that's the way we would get there. So all that being said, I'll stop sharing. I'll read the ordinance sections that would be changed. Public notice was issued for this zoning ordinance text amendment on the 8th and the 15th of November. And based on the findings that are contained in your staff report, staff recommends approval of amendments to sections 14-208, Section 14-418, Section 14-702, and Section 14-904 of the City Code of Ordinances related to public notice signs. I can attempt to answer any questions you have.
Commissioners, questions for Daniel. Commissioner Schmitz?
I don't know that this is ordinance related, but I'm a little concerned on the size of the sign. It seems like it could be bigger if we're going to try to draw attention to people who might be interested in the public hearing. Having a 2x3 sign seems a little small to me.
Chair, Commissioner, that is a point that we have discussed, and that. So the ordinance wouldn't stipulate that, so we can take that.
No, but I'm just taking that. I'm giving that as feedback.
Yeah, and maybe one point to add to that, we may wish to have multiple sizes.
Yeah.
So okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Bittner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What does this do to the cost of this program? Does it increase permit fees? It seems like it increases labor both at the city and at the applicant level. So I'm just curious if we've looked at the cost of this.
Thank you, Commissioner Bittner. So maybe before I answer that question in detail, I will say we did reach out to the applicant side of this as well, partially for that question that you raised. We mentioned this at the HBA meeting where the developers are present. We also had a meeting specifically with consultants and asked them about this, if they would be the ones responsible for installing these signs, to understand what impact it may have on them. I'll say the cost to the city, we do have a budget for this in 2025. It's fairly minimal. That we were intending to use signs, maybe chloroplast or a sign that a realtor may use. We'd like something fairly durable that could be easily reused, but we were intending to, I believe the budget was about $1,000 a year or so to purchase these signs. We are not, the permit fees were neutral. There were some things that went up and some things that went down, but for the most part in 2025, the permit fees are not changing significantly for the community development department, and really the signs are not really an impact on the permit fees.
Thank you, Commissioner Bittner. Commissioners, additional questions for Daniel? Commissioner Johnson.
It mentions guidelines established by the Director of Community Development. Would you have guidance on where it has to be on the site so it's not in some obscure corner, that it's publicly viewable and things like that within that guidance?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Johnson. And certainly any of these comments we can use to craft those guidelines. The ones that we've seen that we would use as examples state that it must be on private property, and we can't allow these on the public right away for obvious reasons. But usually there's a certain distance, say 10 feet from the right of way, that they must be placed, and they must not be obstructed in any way. And that's one of the reasons for the photo as well. So if staff does see a photo and it's very clear from that this isn't visible, then we could ask to move them. But that's something we would need to make clear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioners, additional questions? Daniel, one of the questions that I had, and I always like to go back to the beginning of things, but my question would be, what problem are you solving by doing this?
Commissioner Schwartz, thank you, and I should have started with that. Actually, that is a good question. So I think I'd say, from our perspective, one of the comments we receive, maybe even more than anything else, is related to notification, saying I didn't hear about this hearing. You have a 350 feet radius, but I live right outside of that. My neighbors heard. I didn't know about this, or I didn't know in time, or the letters didn't arrive, or and we hear a lot of these, or the letters maybe didn't have all of the information I needed. So we feel like there's multiple ways that people wish to hear about things, and communication involves sort of a multifaceted strategy, and this is one way to reach out to people who may not otherwise know what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. It just, to me, I looked at it and I'm going, it seems like it's kind of almost a step backwards in that with the technology that we have available to us these days, you can find so much online, or you have your mailings and that, and it felt like it was a step backwards. But it's good to understand what the motivation is behind it. Thank you. Commissioner Schmitz?
So I think we have to look at any way we can to notify people, and mail service is not necessarily reliable on a timely basis anyway, and people do not check their mailboxes on a regular basis because they tend to get stuffed with a lot of things that they don't even care about. And yes, technology is there, but who's always going out to the website for the public entities? So the more we can make it known to them, visible, that's why, I think the size of the sign might be an issue to me more, because a 2x3 sign may not be very visible to draw attention. If we're trying to draw attention to, hey, this is something that might be important to you. So I just think the more ways we can find to communicate, the better.
Appreciate the comment. That's important. Any other comments, commissioners, or questions, I should say, for Daniel? Commissioner Johnson.
Just one quick one, just so, I'm sure you're all thinking about it anyways, but as you think about sign size and how is it going up? Like, is it something that someone can do easily, or do they have to, even realtor signs, there seems like there's specialized or special groups that just go around and put them up, take them down, just so anyone could be able to do it easily, so compliance stays up and it's not a huge burden for the applicants as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Shell.
Maybe to echo some of that, Daniel, you said you'd engage with some of the consulting engineering groups. What sort of feedback did you get from that stakeholder group on what this change would mean to them?
Sure. And that's one thing we did learn from that group, and we'd suspected this already, but they most cases they will need to call one call if they're sticking anything into the ground, even a sign of fairly small tines. So what we would need to do is work with them on the timing of things. So the city staff, as soon as an application is received, we could notify them of this, and then they could go out and find their location first, and then if there's 48 hours in advance for them to actually place the sign. So that's the one thing that was a very helpful comment that we received from them. Otherwise, there was one comment raised about the question of whether this could lead to unwanted attention from a property owner if they have a public notice sign on their property. We did explore that a little bit, and we looked at some other communities. I believe Ben worked in a community, Ben Arith did, that use these signs regularly in Montana. So it is a standard practice all around the country, and so I think if that were an issue that may have risen to the attention. I was thinking of the election that just occurred, and we have signs up for Harris and signs up for Trump, and we are able to handle that in a civil fashion in our community. And so we don't anticipate that being an issue, but those were the two concerns that we heard in that meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Shell. Commissioners, any additional questions for Daniel? I'm not seeing or hearing any, Daniel. Thank you.
Thanks.
This is a request for a public hearing. So with that, I'm going to open the public hearing, and I don't see anybody sitting in the room here. Is there anybody online that would care to step up to the podium and talk?
I don't see anybody, Chair.
All right. Thank you, Ben. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, this is a request for a zoning ordinance text amendment. Staff recommendation is to approve. What are your wishes?
Move to approve as presented.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Schmitz.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Johnson. Any additional discussion? And I'm not seeing or hearing any. Ben, would you please call roll?
Yes, Chair. Commissioner Bittner?
I'm not a big fan of signs all over the place, having just gone through the campaign and having signs out all over. But I would prefer if it was a pilot program, see what see if it works first and see if the public has any issues with it. But I'm going to vote yes. I don't need to elaborate.
Okay, thank you. Johnson?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Lukens?
Yes.
Shell?
Yes.
Schmitz?
Yes.
And Chair Schwartz.
Yes, the motion is approved. With that, we'll move on to other business. Commissioners, is there any other business for the good of the commission this evening? And I'm not
Yes,
seeing.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Bittner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to tell everybody that I appreciate the extra attention to that one landowner's concern with that that road realignment issue. I just thought that was important that we identified that the concerns were addressed, and I appreciate that. And I want to say thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bittner. With that, anything else? If not, our meeting for December is moved up a week, so our meeting will be December 18th, our next one. And with that, I'm going to adjourn this evening's meeting. Thank you for your time.